Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing Season 5, Season Finale of Better Call Saul. And I'll just say straight off the top, there's probably about a bajillion podcasts that have to do with Better Call Saul. So I'm going to try to keep mine relatively condensed. It's probably not going to be nearly as detailed, but I'll also give a couple of recommendations if you do want podcasts that are a little bit more detailed and have a little bit more thorough eye on it. So yeah, I'll give the recommendation to those podcasts at the end of this review. So Season 5 of Better Call Saul. It's the semi-season series finale. We've only got one more Better Call Saul season 6. So I thought it would be important to at least cover this, very final episode at least, just a little bit, and maybe talk about our opinions of Better Call Saul as a show as a whole. Obviously, this is going to contain spoilers for Breaking Bad. It's going to have spoilers from everything for the first 5 seasons of Better Call Saul. But if you have not seen all that, just real quick, Breaking Bad is absolutely a television show you need to go back and watch just for the sake of the cultural relevance of it. I mean, it's created, iconic uh, actors and iconic stars and symbols and sayings, and it's one of those relevant shows that don't come along, but maybe once every 10 years, if that. And so, yeah, it's that big of a show. So go back and watch Breaking Bad. Go back and watch the last 5 seasons of Better Call Saul, and then join us, and you'll be enlightened on our review. So, not too much homework, right? But just in case you have seen all that, for the rest of you all that are still here, yes, I am constantly blown away by the cinematography, the direction, the acting, the music, all of the technicals that make this show what it is absolutely hits on, uh, you know, 10 out of 10, pins and needles, always has me out of my chair, always hype. It's one of those shows that I enjoy rewatching just because I see something new every time, and it's kind of a new experience depending on, how you're watching it. Like, I love watching on the biggest real estate, loudest, best sound system that you can. I wish I could watch the entire series in a theater, honestly. It is that cinematic of property, with the exception of, the clear act breaks. Um, but yes, the majority of Better Call Saul, the series, has been focused on Jimmy, and Jimmy turning into the character of Saul. Saul being the eventual lawyer for, Walter's Breaking Bad, Heisenberg. Um, but the difference in the two series, real quick, is Breaking Bad is much more focused on, obviously Walter White, and I think it's much more story based, and obviously we have Aaron Paul in there as well, and the thing about Breaking Bad, it's way more story centric and story focused. Better Call Saul is a prequel that is happening all before that, but it is way more character centric. And so, being that it's character centric, the story progresses at a lot slower of a pace, obviously, because we've gone through 5 seasons of Better Call Saul, and it's relatively what I would call a slow burn. Most people going from Breaking Bad to Better Call Saul found it somewhat jarring, just in the pacing and the storytelling. But I think that in a way that Breaking Bad is kind of like, a delicious meal, but you get it in about 30 minutes, or you can make it in about 30 minutes. Not that they did, but Better Call Saul feels like that stew or that pot that is just constantly cooking and adding these small little ingredients and adding little things that have relevancy, even up to the first episode with Tuco. And all of everything that has happened has been shown, and it's sort of showed and foreshadowed up to the beginning of Better Call Saul, and even seeping into Breaking Bad, because that's obviously in the future. But yeah, it's been fascinating to see the progression of all of these characters. So, given that Better Call Saul is way more character centric and character focused, we are focusing mainly on Jimmy and the people that he is um, kind of coming into, day to day. And obviously, we got Mike Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad. I'm not going to get all these details 100% correct, so just forgive me off the top of the head. Don't don't scold me too hard in the comments, because it's relatively one of my first podcasts with this topic, so it's a lot to cram in there, pack in there. But yes, all of the acting, the men, the women, the casting is phenomenal. I love the supporting cast of Breaking Bad. So, given that we're seeing the people that Jimmy has touched in his life, um, and his transformation into becoming Saul, it's taken him relatively almost 4 seasons to actually make the transformation. It's mostly him just being a really shitty guy, pulling off these terrible schemes and pranks and becoming just a sleazy guy over the course of 2 to 3 seasons. And as we know by now, at believe it's the end of season 3 that he loses his brother Chuck, and it just sets him into an overdrive, um, into becoming more of this character. Um, I might be wrong if it's season 3 or the end of season 3 or season. It's definitely not the end of season 4. I think it was 2 years ago. So, yeah, I told you that it's a big cinematic universe, but overall, we are slowly unveiling who this character is, of Jimmy McGill, and the people that he's around. The newest character in the season, in season 5, that he was in season 4, but he's really been predominant in season 5, is Tony Dalton's character as Lalo Salamanca. And I am fascinated by this character, and the way that they were able to make a character more prominent, or not more prominent, but almost as magnetic as Gus Fring's. Gus Fring being basically the biggest kingpin that Walter White had to go up against in Breaking Bad. And so, yeah, in my opinion, Gus Fring was like the ultimate character that you would have to overcome with wanting to see. I in season 5, it was the first time that I was like, you know what? I kind of want to see more Tony Dalton and a little bit less Gus, because there's only so much they can do with the character of Gus, knowing, his story, his progression. I would like to see some backstory with Gus. I feel like we're being a little bit, uh, we're shown so much of, the strong scenes that he's in, but we don't ever get to see like the unveiling behind him. And maybe that undoes the magic trick, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But in my opinion, I would like to see some more Gus, maybe through flashbacks. I don't know if they would recast him younger, or if they would, de-age him or something. I don't know. It'd be expensive, undoubtedly, but I would like to see some more Gus. But yes, given that we didn't have as much Gus, I was not complaining having Tony Dalton's Lalo's character. I think he brings this charisma, but scary charisma. Like, he's serving, scares up with a smile. And I think I've described other characters as, like that before. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but this is one of the best characters in 2020's television right now. He is absolutely nailing it, and the unpredictability about him is what I love about it. Yeah, and so at the end of this actual episode, we see that Gus sent guys to go take down Lalo's place, and given the entire seasons of what happened, it sounds like what would it sounds like the natural progression of what would happen. Lalo had the the restaurant burned down, and so Pollos Hermanos, or just a Pollos Hermanos, and so yeah, it was a badass directed scene, excellent cinematography. I want to see a full movie of this Lalo situation with these SWAT guys coming. I mean, he's the way that Better Call Saul's directors and just entire team and staff. I know it's not quite Vince. Vince Gilligan was the main creator of Breaking Bad, and he started Better Call Saul and handed it off to Peter Gold. And Peter Gold's kind of running the ship over there. But they have an amazing team. They have an amazing squad of people behind the scenes that are really cranking some of their best work out, and they seem humble about it. They I don't know if they understand how significant, that this work is in comparison to some of the stuff that's being cranked out there, because they just feel so confident in the way that they're able to just leave the camera rolling on someone's face as they're unfolding emotions, letting the actors act. And yeah, it's a phenomenal season. The last, I will say, for the past few seasons, I want to say that episode 9 has been my favorite of every season, and then episode 10 has felt like a follow-up that never quite lived up, and it always felt like it was trying to connect a lot more to the next season in a way that I was like, oh, it's not quite hitting that satisfying narrative thrill that episodes 9 have been hitting every time. um I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but it feels that episodes 10 have felt much more like a connective piece to the you know next season, and this feels very much in the same realm. Um, I will say this season has been an amazing Kim Wexler season. It's been phenomenal with regards to the acting, the way that her character has unfolded from working with Marissa Verde, and the the banking situation of trying to get the real estate stuff worked out. I feel like she told off that old guy like 20 times what it was. Um, and, I don't know what the guy was living in the middle of a place they needed to do development. I don't, what do you want? And they're offering money. So, um, yeah, I guess legally they said they couldn't get him off of there. So that's where the whole dispute went down. But I will say, Jimmy is becoming so much more of a despicable guy each season that it's very hard to believe that Kim would want to be with this guy. We do get some backstory with her and her mother. Her mother apparently was alcoholic and probably was not the best parent. I don't I think they were talking about having, struggling to eat and being poor when she was talking to one of the elder men at the real estate property. I don't remember his name, damn it. Um, but let me see if I can whip it up. But yeah, I do find it more and more difficult that Kim would want to be with Jimmy after everything that's going on. I'm just Kim just seems like she was such a good golden hearted character, and by the end of this season, watching how she has to basically take up for Jimmy, which I was thinking the entire first half of this episode is Jimmy is such a despicable character. He can't even say thank you to Kim for covering his freaking ass. Like, he just sits back like a sack during that whole episode. Um, just freaking out, and he has Tony Dalton's Lalo's character in his living room, and the one person that is running the situation is Kim, and she's unguarded. She's closer to Tony, um, like not only was she protecting Jimmy through almost what felt like a legal manner, it felt like she was negotiating with Lalo, but she was also physically between Jimmy and Lalo. Like, if you really cared about Kim, get her behind. I feel like Jimmy is a coward. My lord, it is just it's bewildering, and it seems like he's starting to realize it a little bit in this episode. But the way that this episode kind of unfolds, Kim's character, I'm not sure 100% feels natural. She just all of a sudden wants tons of work to do, and she wants to kind of take on the Sandpiper case that is with Patrick Fabian's Howard's character, and I did love the prostitute scene with Howard. Um, I love every scene having Howard on there. He seems very precise, and he always had to talk like, "Hey, Jimmy, I'm offering you a job over here at H&M." So yeah, I just love the way he enunciates, and when he's on the Better Call Saul podcast, it is he just seems like has he just seems like one of the most positive guys you could probably hang out with. But in the way that he kind of presents himself in Better Call Saul, he seems so uppity and persnippety, and that's kind of how they portray him in the eyes of Kim Wexler and Jimmy McGill. And it seems that Kim wants to get one over on Howard, and Jimmy is the one that's way more reluctant. And it's weird because Kim keeps saying, Jimmy, Jesus, I can see all the names get tangled now. Kim keeps asking Jimmy, you know, this isn't going to happen again. You're not going to have to go through that Lalo stuff again. Although I do think you should go, with me to help ruin Howard's reputation so that we can resolve this case and get, I think it's like $2 million or something like that. So that's troubling, and probably everyone's ears and eyes when they're watching and listening to Kim say that. I'm not sure if it 100% feels natural, in my opinion, especially after what just happened. She might be having some sort of breakdown, just as Jimmy seems to definitely be having, especially the way they were shooting the oranges, and the way that the writer of episode 9 is hilarious on that podcast. I want him to be on all the podcasts. He's like the guy that sounds like he has a one or two whiskeys in him when he's joining the podcast, but he sounds like a lot of fun. And he wrote episode 9, and he seems very aware of the tropes that happen in TV and film. And so just as the oranges were being shown, yeah, that needs to so the oranges being shown, that is immediately registered in people's eyes and ears. It's like, oh shit, is Kim gonna die? And then obviously we have the whole scene at the end of episode 9. I can't go through every episode and talk about it. Obviously I'm in love with. I have multiple scenes that I can just draw from memory that I absolutely love in both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, just because they're some of the most cinematic scenes. It's scenes like with Gene. I haven't really talked too much about Gene. Gene is Saul when he's in the future. This is after the Breaking Bad timeline, and we're getting Gene scenes at the beginning of each season. And so all of the Gene scenes, the black and white, is just gold, phenomenal. I love the way they're showing him making Cinnabons, working at the Cinnabon place and being paranoid. I just have like visuals of the Cinnabons in black and white, and it makes me want to try to shoot a little bit more in that style. Probably different little aspect ratio and stuff like that. Other things, scenes I was thinking about during this season were, I think they were talking about an extreme shot, an extreme wide shot that they were trying to get with Jimmy and the cell phone in the middle of the desert. Just extremely memorable scenes and montages. Obviously, the montages for days. There's, can't get enough of the montages. Obviously to show the time progressing and stuff like that. One of the main, most recent shots are with Mike Ehrmantraut, which I haven't talked too much about. We've seen him kind of go into a state that is just like he knows what his job is and he knows what he has to do to secure his future. And so the most logical thing is keep your head low and keep Jimmy off your porch, obviously, because that scene was cracking me up, honestly. He just slapped him in there once he got there. He's like, get your ass in there. But I love Mike Ehrmantraut. I can't even get my voice even a third as low as how he talks. He sounds like he is below when he's talking. But some of the more memorable scenes I was thinking about, he's going home. I think he gets beat by some old guys and taken to Mexico, and that's where he's told by Gus, this is how it's gonna be, and this and Mike wants to get out of the game. He's kind of done with it, but I feel like he's kind of easily, I don't know, shown the way. He's like, we can give you, money, protection, that type of thing. And I'm not exactly sure if I 100% bought his turn and going back to, Gus during this. So, it's the thing is, we know that it's going to happen eventually, and we know that Gus is going to trust Mike as basically his right hand man. And so yeah, that's just about it. Some of the more memorable scenes I was thinking of from other seasons were the montages with Jimmy and his buddy in the first season when they're doing schemes. I don't remember, they were listening to Cat Scratch Fever and all of that, but it was a lot more of a comedy earlier in the seasons. It's definitely turned a lot more darker as it's gone along, and a lot more closer to death as the show has walked. But a couple, speaking of closer to death, when they're creating the meth lab in season 4, when the Gus and Mike storyline, and they shoot the German guy out in the middle of the field. First of all, it's one of the most beautiful shots with the stars above, but it is beautifully terrifying, if I can say something I've said before. But yeah, there are some beautiful night shots out there with the bokeh and the lights and the cinematography. It's just a beautiful show. It looks good, sounds good, acted good. It's nothing y'all don't already know. But basically, I think my my prediction for next season are I think if this show was made in any other time than 2020, I think if it was made 10, even maybe even 5 years ago, I think that Kim would have been shot on episode 9, and she would be dead, and it would be a trigger for Jimmy to go to the next season. But given this is made and being written in 2020 and probably a little bit of 2019 as well, maybe a little earlier, maybe they already wrote her what they were going to do with her. But from what I hear, Vince Gillen and Peter Gould kind of like to write as they go. They don't like to have like a big storyboard out. They might already have, the ending and the beginning, but they're still writing the middle in a way. So I don't think there's enough evidence to say that we know that she's alive in the Jean timeline, but I think we know that Jean is near her hometown in proximity. And he has said that he's had multiple wives before. I don't think that Better Call Saul, the character in Breaking Bad, acts or appears that his wife was killed or murdered, which is good. I don't want that character. Yeah, I don't want that character to be used as like a trigger, as like a something to set Saul off or something like that. I think that she's always been a stronger character than doing that to her, fridging her or something like that. But I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with her, with the exception of maybe saying she wants to have a complete life switch and get rid of Jimmy, or get rid of her law license, or just completely do it, like, or she's gonna lose it by doing this scam or something like that. Or a lot of people were predicting she was going to die. I don't think she's going to. She does have this crazy car wreck, and the way it's edited, my God, it's beautiful, and horrific at the same time. But I think the car wreck was in like season 3-ish, maybe 2 or 3-ish. I don't remember, but it was phenomenal. And there's just they're teasing death around Kim Wexler, and I really don't think that this is going to be the show to do that. Now, does that mean that Jean gets to run off into the blue, the blue yonder sunset with her? I don't think so. I think that Jimmy has become more of a despicable man as we know him in Better Call Saul than we even could have imagined. He became even more of a shithead, um, in a very similar way that Walter White did. But I like viscerally dislike the character of Saul. There used to be times, I think it was in season like 4, that I actually was tolerable of the character. But he's become like a very despicable, hateful human being in a way that's kind of hard to continue to enjoy his shenanigans, like throwing bowling balls over, the house. He just seems petty in a way that I don't know that I totally agree with. And he's kind of slimy, and that's what makes it a little bit more difficult to believe that Kim would want to stay with him. I'm starting to lose my understanding for why she wants to be around him. Like, does she not? She seems like a well-leveled person, even still with this craziness coming out of her mouth, that she could still be a good person. But I don't really I don't really get her. I don't really understand her motivation for staying with Jimmy at this point. But yeah, I think at this point she's going to have a career change or a law license change, because otherwise, and she's probably alive, because otherwise, why is Jimmy in the state? That's my question. Um, and probably for the style of season 6, I think it would make a lot more sense if well, first of all, I gotta say something about his hair. His hair has changed all the way in the front. He's Better Call Saul got bangs now, straight bangs on the front. So I think that means he's almost full Saul, or he's very close to being full Saul. It every season it feels like, oh shit, he's about full Saul, and he's obtained the ring. He's become, he's buried his friend. His brother has died. He's quit his job, and now he's got the name legally. Better Call Saul and all that. And so, and now he's got like his Lady Macbeth to his Macbeth, I think, if I said that right. I don't know if I said that right, but his Bonnie and to his Clyde. Um, yeah, it's I I'm worried about Kim, obviously. So, um, but yeah, I definitely do think she's alive. I don't know how they run off into the sunset. My thing is, my thing is, I really don't have a prediction for how they're going to end it. It seems that they've predicting that, or there's been a lot of prediction that Jimmy's going to end up in jail, and I can't really dispute that. He kind of deserves to go there. Um, Maybe for not a long time. Maybe if Jimmy goes to jail for a while, there's a time jump, and he gets out and he gets to go be with Kim. That would I think that might suffice in a way. I wouldn't be angry with that, but I'm not sure if like either one of them deserve death. That doesn't sound like the ending to a Better Call Saul as it is, in a satisfying way. And the way that El Camino kind of wrapped up Aaron Paul's character. Um, yeah, I'll just give spoilers for that. There's gonna be spoilers for El Camino right now, with the Aaron Paul character, because I mean everybody's watched that relatively, and if you haven't, you're about to be spoiled. Um, but at the end of El Camino, the character Aaron Paul has, a Wild West shootout in a what is it, like a, I don't know, like some sort of manufacturing place or something like that. I can't remember exactly where he has his Wild West shootout, but eventually he gets the car and drives away and moves to Alaska. And so it was everything that was foretold and Breaking Bad, I believe. And so if there was anything that we missed in Breaking Bad that had to do with clues that where Saul might end up going, I know that we had the cameo from Robert Forster in both El Camino and Breaking Bad. Apparently, they were shot in a very similar time, if not on the same days. R.I.P. Robert Forster, but amazing actor. Loved him in Jackie Brown and among many other things. But yeah, having him at the beginning as a vacuum cleaner guy, the guy that could get you out, take you wherever you needed to go, but you could not come back. Very hard stipulations, no refunds kind of thing. We saw that all go down in El Camino, but that's not going to be an option given what we know about the vacuum cleaner salesman at this point. Robert Forster probably will not be making a return in season 6 unless it's some sort of flashback or repeated scene or something cut that was deleted. But yeah, so my guess is I think my ultimate guess is for the end of season 6 is Jimmy is gonna have to come to realize all the shit that he's done, all the people he's hurt. And I think the only way that's going to happen is through jail. And, we did have Hank Schrader and everything in this season, but I don't think that they're going to make a. I'd be surprised if they came back in next season. I think it was just kind of a one and done situation. It was good to see him, good to have him. They didn't have terribly that much important things to say, but I do think that I'm trying to think if there's anyone in the law enforcement that would make sense to take Jimmy down. I wonder if it would make sense to bring Junior back or something. What if Walt's son was the one that took Jimmy down or something? I don't know if any of that would make sense. I think that might just be fan fiction or something, some craziness. Walt Junior going private eye, but I don't really know. I don't think I think what does Jimmy have, diamonds in a Band-Aid box or something like that? It's some homage to an old movie, just like everything else is. But yeah, so we got diamonds in the Band-Aid box. So he's got, it seems that he has the money still. So I still feel like if Gene is still sitting on large amounts of cash, he still has a big, dip in the roller coaster to come before he, gets his, complete, he needs to get his comeuppance before the end of season 6, in my opinion. If this guy gets to scathe off, scot-free, obviously just being miserable, is not great, but I think that he needs to, pay a price. So I think it might be a few years in jail for some things. I think Kim might end up getting out of law and being something else. I'm not exactly sure at this point. She seems overly qualified for everything else. But yeah, it's gonna be a doozy. And for what we know about Gus, we know what's gonna happen to Mike. I guess there's some time in the end of season 6 they're gonna just have like their final scenes that are gonna be their semi-season finale scenes for or there'll be their series finale scenes for both Better Call Saul, before they go into the Breaking Bad timeline. That's going to be an interesting, goodbye. And then we got Nacho. I haven't really talked too much about Nacho and his pops. One thing I love Nacho's freaking house. That painting, holy sack! I didn't think I was going to talk about that, but the set design. Throughout the whole season's beautiful, but especially at some of these exquisite houses. Just even at this last ranch style that Lalo's place is really beautiful as well. And we got the Scarface guy. What's his name? Eduardo or something like that? I kind of forgot what the Tony Montana guy. It's his side guy. His Batman to his Robin. Forgot his fucking name. He's not a sound. I don't think he's. Is his name Eduardo? I don't know. We're getting too late in the podcast for me to get too all into the cartel and everything like that. So, yeah, it was another great episode. Love the little shootout. Love the style. Love the set design. Love that painting in Nacho's house. I do think that Nacho is probably going to live throughout this. I don't know if his father's going to live. His father is way too stubborn, and at this point, his father's been in the crosshairs of Gus, and he's been, in the crosshairs of, the Salamancas. He's just in danger all the time, no matter what he does, and he's stubborn as well. So it's just a recipe for disaster. And I think that Nacho is living with a lot of stress, but I think it might be a sacrifice as well, unfortunately. So we got to keep an eye on that. I do think Ignacio ends up living though. At the end of it, so at least that's what Saul thinks by the sometime in Breaking Bad. So yeah, and he finds out that Lalo, they obviously don't know Lalo's still alive, so it's gonna be a doozy. That's what I gotta say. Um, I said I was going to give you a recommendation on some uh, podcast. Post show recaps has a great recap show with Josh Wigler and Antonio Mazzaro. Listen to them weekly if you wanted to check out a slightly more in-depth podcast. Let me see if there's anyone else that does daily podcast. I think that actually might be it. There were some other ones I used to listen to weekly. Oh, the Better Call Saul Insider podcast. That has the entire cast and crew, circulate in and out of the chairs. And Peter Gould and, the creators are in there. Vince Gilligan telling, how the episode was crafted. So I love when they have the actual actors in there. Sometimes they have, what's his face? They always have Peter Gould and they have Chris McCaleb running the show. But a lot of times they'll have like Jonathan Banks or Bob Odenkirk or Ray Seahorn or Patrick Fabian, who's Howard. Love having all these characters stop in. I think that at one point they had Giancarlo Esposito. And he sounds completely different from Gus. It's amazing what what he does to his voice when he's talking. So, but someone who doesn't change is Mike Ehrmantraut. He always sounds like this. So, until next time, you can. I can't even keep my voice like that. For it kind of hurts. It's like straining. So yeah, thank y'all for listening, watching Lucky Dog Podcast, whatever you're doing to support the Lucky Dog Podcast. 5 stars on iTunes. It helps us keep us high in the iTunes ratings and keeps us up in the books. Comments, questions, concerns, email luckydogpodcast@gmail.com. Twitter, Lucky Dog Podcast. Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Discord. Links are in the description. And if you want to support, if you have $1, $2, maybe even $3, if you want to get crazy, paypal.me/the Lucky Dog Podcast. Link is in the description. Thank you for listening to the Better Call Saul review. Let me know what you thought about it. Let me know how it can improve. Thumbs up, subscribe. If you want the podcast early, subscribe on YouTube. New podcasts are every week on Tuesdays through Soundcloud and on your favorite podcast provider. Thank you. We couldn't do this without you. And take it easy.